Good day, YouTubers. I'm going to do another video in my creation series category, and this is about geologic fossil layers, geologic layers, um, layers laid down apparently over millions of years, which have various fossils in it, sea creatures and dinosaurs and all that good stuff. So I'll just go through some definitions here. What is stratification? And that's another name for rock layer, layer basically. The concept derives from the geological use of the idea that sedimentation takes place according to uniform principles when archaeological finds are below the surface of the ground, as is most commonly the case. There are some right on mountaintops, actually, the peaks of mountaintops. The identification of the context of each find is vital to enabling the archaeologist to draw conclusions about the site and about the nature and date of its occupation. That's key, the date there, that they gather information about the date related to it. That's kind of that's a bad idea, and we'll get into that shortly. It is the archaeologist's role to attempt to discover what contexts exist and how they came to be created. That's a funny word as well, created. Archaeological stratification or sequence is a dynamic superimposition of single units of stratigraphy or contexts. You can find that on Wikipedia. It's one of my favorite sources for your basic set of definitions and information. One interesting note is that this was likely written by an atheist, and there's a few different things that catch my eye, but one of them is they suggest that sedimentation takes place according to uniform principles. If you believe in the Big Bang Theory, and the evolutionary theory, things went from chaos to order. And evolution is really all about chaos originally, and then all of a sudden, out of chaos came order. We know things never go from chaos to order. Those are just the rules of entropy, a third law of thermodynamics there. So how do uniform principles exist? It doesn't really make sense. Anyways, I wasn't going to get started that quick, but how do evolutionists explain stratification of fossil rock layers? Sedimentary rocks are formed particle by particle and bed by bed, and the layers are piled one on top of the other. Thus, in any sequence of layered rocks, a given bed must be older than any bed on top of it. The law of superimposition is fundamental to the interpretation of Earth's history, because at any one location indicates the relative ages of rock layers and the fossils in them. Now, there's some assumptions here. The assumption is that if there is a layer that's lower than another layer, that the layers were laid down at different times. Now, the incorrect idea is that it requires a large amount of time to lay them down, and I think I'll show you this in the next slide here. Evolution suggests this happened over millions of years. It doesn't really make sense for a number of reasons. What is the most obvious reason for its formation, for stratification? And we're just going to disregard what creationist thinks for the minute. I don't know if you've ever seen the boxes, and they have glass on each side, like the image here, and they're full of different sized particles of sand, different granular bits of sand or whatever, and they're different colored too. And what you can do is you can take this a box of sand inside the windows and inside the double pane window, and you can turn it like this to shake up the sand. Now, what ends up happening, and everybody who's looked at one of these has experienced it, is that the sand starts sorting itself by size. The smallest stuff at the bottom, the largest particles at the top. This is fully accepted. This is common knowledge. And the key thing is the speed. This basically happens as fast as you can agitate that box. The faster you agitate that box, the more particles of sand are going to sort themselves in a shorter period of time. And if you take one of these boxes of sand, they do it pretty quickly. You turn it back and forth a few times, and it's sorting itself. So the one thing is, given enough energy or force upon a certain amount of sand, or any particle for that matter, it will start sorting itself. And this is really the basis for stratification / rock layers. How does a creationist explain this? There's lots of good articles at answersandgenesis.org. The Bible tells of a flood that occurred on the earth. The flood of Noah occurred rapidly on a global scale, and a global scale is key. If it's true that the flood was worldwide and that there was enough water to make it so, one could not argue that that would not be enough water to move the sediment around the continents. The idea being, if there truly was a global flood, you have to believe that first, and I believe there's a lot of geologic evidence for that all around the earth. Then given that amount of water, that is enough water to move all the sediment on Earth, and that is the force, that is the large enough force required to make that sand sort itself in the glass box in terms of a worldwide scale. If the water was enough to move the sediment, then it would sort itself naturally by size as it settled out. This is something we can see today with the sand sorting box or stratification experiments. It's an observable and repeatable process. The observable, repeatable part comes from that little sand in the double pane window glass toy where you can mix it up and then you can start shaking it back and forth and it sorts itself. There are a lot of details here, like how did various animals get stuck in various parts, but in general, in terms of dirt, sand, other organic particles, the smallest ones go to the bottom if everything's moved at once, and the biggest ones generally stay at the top. Like I say, there's intricacies there, but just as a general idea, that's what happens, and that's what we see in science, using science. You can check out the link there below Answers in Genesis. Just go to that website and search for sedimentation there, and you should be able to find it. Now, one of the best examples, I think, is polystrate fossils. What is a polystrate fossil? The best example is where in geologic layers, in rock layers, you actually see a fossilized tree standing on end. And a fossilized tree is just a tree that has since been replaced with minerals, so that all you have left is the shape of the tree, but really it's all minerals, all solid rock now. The images below are simply from Google, I just searched for a polystrate fossil. This one here shows, you can see all the trees standing up. That's what these lines are. And then obviously the stratification is all the layers of sediment within them. And this is a common thing. So you look at these real images here, you have a tree here that's in multiple layers of rock. Another here, and up here. So there's a tree standing straight up. It goes through apparently millions of years of rock layers. And obviously this doesn't make sense if stratification occurred over millions of years. And you see this throughout the fossil record. Trees standing straight up. Here's another example of it. Trees up and trees down within the rock layers. And part of the reason why that happened is because these trees were covered rapidly. There was a pile of water that laid down lots of layers of sediment, just like in the little double pane sand sorting, kids' toy. It happened rapidly. The trees were standing at the time, or somehow got waterlogged and were upright. If this took millions of years before the tree got covered up on the top of it, it would be rotten or chipped away or whatever by moving debris. So you wouldn't get a fossil going through many layers of rock. This is evidence for a catastrophic flooding event, and that's exactly what it is, and it came from Noah's flood there. So you can check that out. To me, that is one of the best arguments for young Earth and for flood, and for confirmation of the Bible as well. Like, it just makes sense if you look at the evidence. The evidence is just telling you straight up that something happened catastrophically and fast. What makes the most sense and is observable and repeatable? Using the example of the simple child sand sorting window box, I don't know what the name of that is, but if you do, let me know. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. It sorts itself by size, given enough force, and the more force you give to it, in general, the faster it will sort itself. Stratification can happen very quickly. Try sorting the kid's sand toy. So, that takes not even 30 seconds to sort a sand toy. It happens very quick. Again, given enough force, given a catastrophic event, given the waters that would have covered the Earth, that happens very quickly. There's absolutely no reason or need to believe in millions of years, nor is there actually evidence for millions of years. And there's various reasons for that too. I could get into a long conversation about that. Millions of years actually work against this due to the erosion that should have occurred in places like the Grand Canyon and that sort of thing. The scientific community knows that erosion should have taken down large parts of the mountaintops, given the millions of years that they claim the Earth is old. Those mountains should not have sharp points on them. They should have eroded down. The continents and the rock layers in the Grand Canyon should have eroded way, way down. The Grand Canyon does not show millions of years, absolutely. It was formed by runoff of flood and catastrophic waters running off the continent of North America. So that's really what we're looking at. My conclusion, looking at the evidence, and like I say, you can get into a ton more evidence here and research it yourself. I'm just kind of giving what I think is kind of the most obvious stuff, kind of no-brainer stuff. Fossil layers are relatively easily explained by observable, repeatable processes. This is key because science keeps touting empirical evidence, but evolution doesn't provide any empirical evidence, observable, repeatable. And that's what we can do in this case. We can show that in lab tests. Layers and sedimentation happen rapidly and can be demonstrated to do that. The most obvious and simple explanation of rock layers, often the simplest explanation is the real explanation, is the true explanation, is that they were laid down in a catastrophic event, and that the event caused it, and the event that caused it was relatively recent due to the lack of erosion, which science predicts would otherwise occur given millions of years. There is no evidence or observable repeatable processes that would require millions of years. You can check out more about this at Answers in Genesis. There's a lot of other sites that show really good information. Obviously, it's only going to be the young Earth creation websites that are going to provide this information, because no one else believes that they have their own faith in fallible man and fallible man's science and theories. Not even science, infallible man's theories. The science that evolutionists and creationists do point to a young Earth and a catastrophic flood in this case. So check this out. I just wanted to give a simple overview of the rock layers. I'm not a scientist, certainly. Maybe I made a mistake or two in here, but have a look at it. Being a young Earth creationist is absolutely not crazy. Actually, it makes a lot more sense than evolution. There's a lot more answers with the Bible and with creation than there is in evolution.